interviewing Pittsburgh-based comic creator Grant Lankard. So, tell us about your origins as a comic creator in Indiana, PA.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small kind of conservative town. It's a college town, but it's still relatively conservative. I started out reading comics, like at newsstands, pharmacies, picking them up there. Then I eventually graduated to the one comic book shop that was in Indiana, and it was called Patty's Paperbacks and Comics. The funny story about that is that I actually went to the same comic book shop growing up that a relatively famous comic book artist went to, named Jim Rugg. He went to IUP there, and I actually emailed him a little while ago to see if he remembered Patty's Paperbacks, and he said that he did. So I grew up like in the 90s, which was a pretty crazy time for comic books. A couple of the highest selling comic books of all time came out then. That was when Image was founded. A lot of comic books that now seem a little bit crazy, I guess is the nicest way to say it. The proportions of the characters got really ridiculous. The storytelling, or lack of storytelling, got a little bit ridiculous. But the big thing about the 90s was that was an era where comic book artists were treated like rock stars. And I think that was what really drew me into comic books. And I remember there was just something about the Image Comics guys. They didn't wear suits to work or anything. And, as a 13-year-old boy, it seemed, oh my God, this has got to be the greatest job in the world. You wear a t-shirt to work, you sit around with your friends talking about comic books and drawing all day. And I think that's really what drew me to comic books at an early age.
You've been in the Pittsburgh music scene for a while. Tell us about the band you were in.
So the first band I played in, which was probably a solid 4 or 5 years ago, was called Modern Nature. They were more of a folk or maybe folk rock band. Then I played in a band called Kleptosonic, which was more hard rock. My new band is called Ladylike. We've done a few gigs around town. Unfortunately, we kind of got sidelined by the whole pandemic thing, like every band. But if you go to my YouTube page, there are actually a couple songs on there from my band.
What content do you put on your YouTube channel, and what is it called?
So my YouTube channel is just Grant Lankard's YouTube channel. If you type Grant Lankard into YouTube, it should come up. And I mostly put comic book reviews on there, but I do also have a couple of songs by my band, as I said.
Tell us about Monarch Publishing, the blog you write for the site.
So the blog that I'm doing is I send out a newsletter twice a month, and it links to the blog that's on my website. We have a lot of really great interviews. It's mostly interviews with the occasional comic book review.
What is your debut release, Lines and Squiggles, and where can people find it?
So Lines and Squiggles, this is an anthology comic book. It was by me and another guy named Victor Venable. And we also got help from a writer named Liam Wallace. It's hard for me to give a plot synopsis because, like I said, it's an anthology. Boytron and Robo Girl was the first story that I did. That's about kind of back when I was dating, before I met my wife, Angi. It's kind of a satirical view of dating and gender roles. What Makes a Villain? That was the story about a villain who's trying to go straight, and kind of the perils of going straight in a world where everybody thinks he's a villain. And then this was Victor's story. It's about vegetables who are having trouble running a restaurant. So you can find Lines and Squiggles at pretty much most comic book stores, or at least they'll soon be in most comic book stores in the Pittsburgh area. In particular, Geekadrome in Brookline has copies, I know. Or you can just go to my website, monarchpublishing.net.
Tell us about the new Beowulf comic and the artist Antonio Brandao from Portugal.
This is my new comic book, Beowulf. It's a story of a 13-year-old girl who finds out that her cat is the reincarnation of an 8th century wizard. They have simultaneous visions of a dragon awakening after a 1,000-year nap, and Mooney gets the idea to find the reincarnation of Beowulf, who unfortunately, it's been 1,200 years since he fought a dragon, and now he prefers to just sit around and watch TV and drink beer.
What is coming in the future for Monarch Publishing, and where can you be found on the internet?
So obviously the thing that's next up is issue 2 of Beowulf. That should be out about 2 to 3 months after issue 1 comes out. This is going to be a 6-issue story arc. After that, that's all I have planned. But quite frankly, since the story involves reincarnation, we can kind of just do a story about anything. We can have stories that take place in the Old West. We can have stories that take place in the Victorian era. We can have like a 1940s detective story starring Beowulf. So the sky's kind of the limit. You can find my Beowulf comic book on Kickstarter. Just search Beowulf issue 1 on Kickstarter. You can also find me on Facebook at GW Lankard. I also have a separate Facebook for Beowulf, which is just Monarch Presents Beowulf. My Twitter and my Instagram are the same. It's just at GW Lankard. And my website is monarchpublishing.net. And you can get a free sample of Beowulf at my website, or you can pick up a copy of Lines and Squiggles there.
Thank you so much for talking to us today, Grant.